And he goes, okay. There's nothing that you've done. I just have the sun in my eyes, so I can't stay over here.
Okay, for the same. Okay, got it. That is not done. I celebrate their house, so I want to hear these vice president here that's down there.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for coming out to the final presentation of the Richmond Highway Corridor Placemaking Technical Assistance Panel. On behalf of ULI Washington, thank you so much. My name is Mark Asta. I'm a manager here running the TAP program. I want to say thank you to our lovely Executive Director, Deb, and our committee members, our TAP committee members. All of you, if you don't mind raising your hand, both Deb and our TAP committee, who do such a great job in helping put on this wonderful program. You'll hear a little bit more about what exactly this program is, and I would love to do that right now. So today we're going to be hearing our panel's recommendations for the assignment that was given to us by our wonderful sponsors at Southeast Fairfax Development Corporation. You'll hear from Evan in a little bit. What we're going to be doing is presenting this information in a way that shows the incredible work that's already been going on here and how we can help catalyze some great things. Acknowledging all the wonderful aspects of your community, and I have to say your passion was so contagious that we couldn't help ourselves. You'll see that we learned a lot and we have a lot to say, so we're really excited to share this all with you. But what is a TAP? A Technical Assistance Panel is one of the key programs that ULI Washington does. As a district council of the Urban Land Institute, we pride ourselves on delivering pointed advice to communities in order to implement fantastic projects and programs. There are often roadblocks that get in the way, unforeseen consequences, and as experts in our fields, we put together panels to deliver these recommendations that help overcome those. This particular technical assistance panel was done in conjunction with a program that we do every year with the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. So our wonderful sponsor team has approached us, and there was a competitive application process, and this project was selected among an array of applicants. So we firmly believe that this is a challenge worthy of a great discussion and many years of continued collaboration. What we do is convene over a 2-day period. On the first day, we hear a lot of information, not only from the sponsor team, and we see it with our own eyes on a site tour, but we listen. We engage in a stakeholder interview process, many of whom many of whom of our audience arrived as stakeholders and engaged in this community engagement aspect that was so informative to the panel's recommendations. So we thank you for that. This is a paid program. Normally the fee is in the realm of $25,000. The reduction in that fee by 50% is thanks in part to our wonderful friends at the Council of Governments. The life cycle of a TAP is meant to be continuously building towards improving the built environment and the relationships that we cultivate as a result. So when we think of a problem that needs addressing, ULI comes together to convene a TAP. We publish a report, which will be delivered to the sponsors 6 to 8 weeks from now. We will then come back in a couple of years and say, how is it going? What can we do to help bring this further into the realm of implementation? We then use that as a way to launch even further initiatives. But none of that can be done without the core concept, the seeding of a great idea from a sponsor. So I would love to pass the mic off to the sponsor for this technical assistance panel, Evan Kaufman, Executive Director at the Southeast Fairfax Development Corporation. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody, for coming out today, and those of you who've come 2 days yesterday to participate in our stakeholder and today to hear the presentation. When we saw this opportunity with ULI, we immediately took advantage of this opportunity. Most TAPs that I was familiar with had focused on real estate development. And while we kind of already have a lot of good plans for real estate development envisioned in the Embark Plan, the comprehensive plan, we really wanted to focus on how do we create a better sense of place, community, character, and identity on the Richmond Highway corridor. And so that's why we applied to this program to create this placemaking plan. And some months ago, I gave a presentation to the Board of Supervisors on behalf of Arts Fairfax. And the whole presentation was bringing cool to the corridor. How do you bring cool to a place? And cool, unfortunately, is not something that one big economic development project brings. It's not something really government does. Cool has to be brought up from the people who live there. It has to be organic, authentic, grassroots. And so we know the corridor has lots of great amenities, restaurants, shopping centers, retail, but there's also this large community, very diverse and multicultural community that lives all along the corridor. And so our objective was how do we bring the essence, character, and identity of these many communities and put it forefront on the corridor so that when people come here, drive here, they know that they're not just on some commercial highway, but they're in a neighborhood, they're in a community, and that these people feel represented where they live and they take pride where they live, and that when people come here, they'll be able to feel that presence through murals, through art, through public and community interventions. And so I'll leave it there because I'm really looking forward. This panel worked very hard. We literally locked them in that room for 18 hours. We had to bring cots. They didn't even come out to sleep. So I'm really excited to see what they come up with. And Joanne, did you want to say a couple words? Okay, Joanne's good. I'll say a couple words for her. We work very closely with the county's Office of Development and Planning, specifically their Community Revitalization Office with Joanne and Elizabeth, and they have been invaluable partners with us in helping to move this project forward, do a lot of the work to bring it to fruition, so we would not have been able to do this without them. And I also want to mention Supervisor Lusk, who has also been very supportive, helped us secure this amazing space, and Supervisor Stork's office, who let us borrow his probably top staff member here, Nick Reinhardt, who put in a lot of time and effort into this as well. So this is a community, a collaboration process, and that's exactly how we're going to implement these projects as well, is through a collaboration. So I'll pass it back to Mark to introduce this wonderful panel that we were so lucky to have. Thank you.
Thanks, Evan. Yeah, this is a really wonderful space, and we're lucky to be here and share all of these recommendations with you all. Thank you to Chanel Green from Building Momentum, who helps oversee this space, and Donna Searing and her team at The Wish for making this all possible. I would love to present the channel. I did this last time too. Our panel chair, who is a wonderful planner from Montgomery County, Nkosi Yearwood, who will introduce the panel and our recommendations to you all. So thank you all again, and I hand it up to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Nkosi Yearwood, professionally with Montgomery County Planning Department. It's good to be here and to be part of this august group of folks for this technical panel. So, other people that were participating, go briefly through them. You can see them on the photograph. I'll start with Shane, who brings tons of experiences regarding real estate, as well as art and murals specifically. Next is Maria, fabulous transportation planner. Next is Anastasia with Marriott. Anna, River East Design Center. Rob, also bringing a variety of real estate experiences to the table. My good friend Connie, very good urban designer, landscape architect. Next, I would say, is one of the premier urban planners, given her history, is Ellen McCarthy, former head of DC Office of Planning under Mayor Williams, currently at Georgetown. And then another good friend of mine, Stephen, formerly with Metro, now with Amtrak, doing a lot of great work regarding development as well as transit planning. We also have Mark, who you also met, as well as our report writer, who will put this report all together once we're done. Shambi, who is also with ULI. So I'll just briefly say thank you for the folks who were here yesterday, the different, especially having, at least at my table as well as Ellen's table, two board of supervisors, representatives, including Mr. Luss. It was good to have that sort of presence at technical assistance panel, as well as the other both property owners, civic interests that were here yesterday. So we definitely appreciate the variety of great information we received from the different tables. So the assignment, we have a lot of slides here, so we're going to be up here for a while. So we want to move as quickly as possible because it would be value your time. So big picture goals, recommend steps towards implementing a vision for placemaking here. Along Route 1, identifying opportunity sites where you could potentially make those investments and inventions, and then recommending a variety of strategies towards bringing in that community identity through placemaking, with obviously this huge investment, over $1 billion for the bus rapid transit that's coming. So we looked at a variety of locations, and we'll get more to that later, in terms of what are the best placemaking spots on the corridor from our perspective. Some of the ways that you can potentially enhance experiences, to define the built environment, which today, for example, there's not a lot of trees in many of the areas along the corridor. For figuring out strategies as we deal with construction, because construction will run several years. So how do you mitigate, and what are some local, national models to think about? And then how do you integrate new development with placemaking opportunities? So all of that is addressed in our presentation. And these are just some representative photographs from yesterday. So again, thank you for all the stakeholders. We heard a variety of good information regarding, for example, private property owners recognize that there are great community assets, such as Woodlawn, for example, in the neighborhood, and figure out, instead of people driving through, how you can make them stop eventually to utilize some of the businesses that are over here. So I'll turn it over to Shane, who will continue the presentation.
Hello, everyone. So the first step, as he mentioned, was yesterday meeting with all the stakeholders and talking to everyone, looking at everybody's perspective on this huge project, as everybody knows. So we kind of summed it up in very hard to sum up, but we kind of summed it up into two kind of main camps. The community, looking at how do we preserve the history, how do we highlight some of the history, how do we increase community activation, and also how do we give opportunities for a lot of the residents who live here. And then the other side of that are the businesses. How do we help them as construction's happening, when you have trailers and all that good stuff? How do you navigate the construction and really help them? So we kind of came up with a 2-scale of implementation. You almost have to do 2 scales, because how do you address somebody in the community, and then how do you address the 7.5-mile cut through many neighborhoods? And so, as I think Evan said, the cool factor, which you guys already started doing, is with art, right? So art, I'm the art guy, so I'm always going to push for art. But art is one of those things which I find to be really intriguing, because it allows the community to speak. I mean, mural's been around for over 100 years, and they're mostly used to hear the voice of the community. So I'm all about the art, so I love it. So I think there's an opportunity, and we'll go into that in a second, of looking at it in 2 scales. So the first scale is the spine, the actual route, which has 9 stops, and really pushing a art-centric corridor. Not that it's going to replace the identity of what's there, but it's going to add another underlying cool factor or underlying thing to also bring visitors into the corridor, which is what we want, right? Because we don't want people to say, oh, we don't want to go there, there's construction. So there's a great opportunity to now bring people in with this new art-centric corridor. Then the second part is, well, once they come, how do they get the orientation, right? So there's 9 stops, 9 different communities, and each community has a diverse offerings to the people who come. So we'll talk in a second about how we make that happen, but really what we're trying to do is, when they come, they get oriented and say, okay, where am I? I'm in ULI. Okay, what's there that we have here? Where are we? Gum Springs. Oh, okay, And so as they come in, they get their little, we call them breadcrumb trails, and they can kind of navigate the community. So that's just kind of a large scale look at the problem, and we'll go to Margaret in a second.
Up or down? So I don't want to be the first one to say this will be disruptive when they're building this. There will be a lot of construction and it will take a long time. So what we try to do is maybe talk about some of the specific and some of the general things that would help alleviate that for the various businesses. And to a certain extent, we are focused on the businesses, and it's not up here, but, for example, small businesses, restaurants, if there's a community meeting, they probably can't go in the evening, which is when most community meetings are. They have to go, obviously, during the day if you have a restaurant. But we had a few thoughts on this. One is obviously the community liaison to kind of coordinate where the construction's moving, when it moves, et cetera. The other one, obviously, is the signage, and we have a couple of things we're going to show you on the signage as we go along, but obviously access to the business, letting people know that they're open is particularly important, and we can talk a little bit about that. The outreach kiosks, partly what the progress of the construction is and how it's going on. And those kiosks could be like a visitor center, but they could also be for the local businesses and residents just as far as the progress. There is this, which I learned about, Reconnect Rondo, which is essentially virtual, and it shows you what the progress will be as you go along. You obviously see the construction, and this will show you, this is a beautiful picture, what it looks on your phone, which is kind of a miracle to me, but it shows you on your phone what it looks like after the construction is done. This is some projects that were done. This is actually Capitol Crossing in DC. This is wallpaper on a chain link fence, the fencing there. This is a program in Raleigh, North Carolina. They sponsor, it's art students. You have to be part of an arts program, and it's all done by students, and this is the winner of this particular contract. This is they're building a building up above. This is a steel curtain and a walkway, so if construction debris falls down, it falls on them. And this is the winner of the program. We thought of, additionally, you know, in Chicago they did the cows. In DC they did the pandas, where people painted them. What if we did Jersey barriers, not the concrete ones, but the plastic ones, which are a little more mobile? And what if we had like a contest for local students? Strategic priority 2 is marketing for the small businesses and the various businesses that are up and down the corridor. And one of the ideas that came from the stakeholder session was these trails. And obviously one thing that is here is a lot of great thrift stores. And so we thought of a thrift store trail. We also thought, you know, of different restaurant weeks and stuff to take advantage of the existing businesses, particularly as some of the access points are closed. And something I wanted to highlight particularly, because it was mentioned quite a bit, was the music venues and outside spaces. And we have beer gardens, but it's the parklets, streeteries, which we looked up and it is actually a word. But outside spaces and the importance of that, and for different people, for families, for younger people to gather. Oh, I wanted to mention one other thing on this. And it could be housed in this building, but during this process, we thought it was very, very important that there's a continued emphasis on small business, and small business to continue, whether it's permitting help, whether it's relocation because maybe they're being displaced, but you know, to have continued access to that through the community centers up and down Route 1, we thought particularly important. There's just some outdoor spaces. That's actually in Rockville. Placemaking and new developments. It's that.
So Rob talked a little bit about things that can be done during construction, mitigate the impacts of construction on the businesses that are here, tenants that are here. But you know, one of the initiatives for the BRT project is to catalyze new development in the corridor, assembling consolidation of parcels, so there's new offerings, increase the competitiveness of the area. So we wanted to give some recommendations about how to think about placemaking as hopefully new projects start coming through the planning pipeline with the county as the BRT is getting constructed. So some thoughts about things to ask for or to look for when they're seeing planning applications come in is how they deliver their placemaking strategies for their development projects. And I think there's a challenge. A lot of times people are expecting every single real estate development project to be this amazing placemaking game changer. But they're not of all of that scale, and they're not always starting in the best locations. You want to kind of pick and choose and focus on the projects that are closer to where the people reside and have greater expectations for those projects, because then they'll be able to make sure that people are occupying those spaces. With these projects, you also want to not trend towards large open spaces. That's often a habit in development projects. It's like, we need a grand plaza, but oftentimes it feels very far from the people's doorsteps or from the retail storefront. So think about having smaller, more intimate, cozy spaces kind of dispersed amongst a project or projects. Great spaces have good shading by day, and they also have creative lighting by night, and lots and lots of furniture. I think we've seen lots of plazas and park space get delivered in this region that are just empty. You you got to fill it if you want people to hang out in it. Think about giving ownership of public spaces to the businesses that are adjacent to them, and let them activate, program, and maintain the space. That'll get people in their stores, but also get people out in the public realm. And one of the things that was really obvious to us as we were driving the corridor and thinking about the BRT plan is Route 1 is always going to be a heavy traffic corridor. And one of the main frameworks of the embarked Richmond Highway Plan is to think about the side streets and grid of streets that's going to grow. Prioritize those side streets to be human first and cars second. Thinking about, curbless environments that feels like you should be driving slow because you have to watch out for the people that are crisscrossing between the restaurants and the residences. And try and avoid island parks. We see a lot of development projects are like, I don't know what to do with this corner over here, so I'll just dump the open space there because it's easy and convenient and out of the way, and I want to put my building in the best spot. Instead of putting that road around it, put that park connected to that building, to the retail frontage, and just have a 50-foot or 100-foot wide sidewalk in front of the building. It can be better served, better used. One of the other big aspects in Virginia with planning for development projects is the proffering process. So separate from just the design review and coordination, think about those proffers. Again, manage those expectations. Not all projects that come through the corridor are going to be large multi-building projects. Some of them are going to be infill projects of maybe even just 3 and 4 stories. They're not going to be able to make the financial contributions for quality, large open space or a mix of open spaces. So maybe consider, or expanding if it already exists, a fee in lieu policy for open space or park space. So that way you can generate a fund that maybe is managed by SFDC or others to deliver great spaces that are programmed through a cultural master plan that identifies throughout the corridor. We're looking for, in the first round, 3 great places and really channeling all the funds momentum there. On the retail side, one of the things we heard a lot about in our stakeholder meetings was concern that the small and family-owned businesses that are here now would probably not be able to relocate in the new developments because the new developments are going to be more demanding of cost. They often also build retail bays or pads that are larger than their current storefronts. So ask new development to provide a greater diversity of size and square footage so that there can be smaller, more lower priced locations that the family chain businesses can move into. And even for larger projects, maybe consider them asking to discount a few of those smaller bays to have more affordable rents, almost in the way that you would think about with affordable housing. Can one bay be at a deeply discounted rent? So many thoughts to consider and the kind of life cycle of the BRT construction. On to Anna.
Thank you so much. Shane and I are going to tag team on this one. I'm sitting here with you. So before we actually start the placemaking and going through some of the types, a few things to think about for placemaking planning. One is, engage the community for ideas. The community is by far our greatest asset along the corridor. Also, look to the community for local artists, local creatives, employ locally when possible, and consider places of importance that would benefit from additional placemaking strategies. We passed by a historical marker yesterday on our site tour, and we were made aware of some other historical markers. We can use some of these ideas to elevate these things that already exist. So the placemaking types that we're going to discuss, murals, fairgrounds, exterior gatherings, the breadcrumb kiosk, and creative center. So for the murals, we broke those up into 3 different types of murals. One, a community history mural. So this is the one that, as the name implies, tells the history of a place, and also the identity of a community. There's a place identifier. This mural will serve kind of as a landmark. If you've ever been to Little Havana in Miami, you've maybe seen the Little Havana mural. Everybody takes a picture of it when they visit, so this is that kind of mural. The other type or series of murals is a mural program, and so this is a broad, cohesive series of murals that extend throughout the corridor. So this will be where maybe a world-renowned artist is hired and commissioned to do a series of murals. This will serve as an attraction to outside entities potentially. And now Shane.
You already did a great job. I don't have to say anything. But I will just add, so here are some examples of just some community murals. Obviously, some neighborhoods, there's great historical figures that we want to put out there in the murals. There's also opportunities for temporary and permanent murals, which is some examples of temporary. Here's an example of permanent. And then there's the opportunity of identity creation. So the idea with identity creation is if you do want to do an arts center, there's no better sign than actually have the building painted. So that's kind of an example of that. And then the large scale, that kind of goes back to that marketing branding. If we do want to do an arts corridor, then what we can do is a wonderful map that goes throughout the corridor, and we would have people come from all over the world to look at these world-renowned artists who would work with local artists, by the way, which is one of the criteria. And we would also look at spots where, in the temporary, if there's a business that's affected where it no longer has the parking that it had before, we would allow people to kind of find them through a breadcrumb and reach that business, which I think is an important thing.
So the next type are the fairgrounds. And so the fairgrounds will host things like farmers markets, festivals, and outdoor kitchen. So that's a situation where there is a stationary outdoor cooking space that different vendors can rotate in and out of. And so these are really good because they are great to service local residents as well as visitors, so it can become a destination as well.
So yes, you said it all again, but you can go back to the idea is that you do have art as a backdrop for everything. So if you do have a farmer's market, make it more vibrant with a mural. The next one obviously is placemaking with art to make it a more vibrant place for either music festivals, food festivals, any kind of art festivals. And then this is just one example of the outdoor kitchen that Anna just mentioned. Here this with buses, but essentially they would be permanent kitchens in vehicles that, for instance, some of these businesses that we identify are not getting the foot traffic that they normally would get. We almost do a taste of DC, but it would be taste of the corridor, and they would have these kitchens that they can use for the event.
So the next type is for exterior gathering spaces, and we have 5 different types of these. Architectural follies, these are sculptural pieces that users can interact with. Large installations, sculptural pieces that more so just kind of draw people to it. You may not be interacting with it, but it's so nice you want to come out and lay your blanket down next to it. A parklet, that's one that we are pretty familiar with. Excuse me. These can be permanent or temporary. They offer seating generally in just other places of respite. Tree groves, arboretums, opportunity to add some greenery and increase the canopy along the corridor, which we've noted is lacking. And then activated activity spaces, other gathering spaces like temporary putt-putt golf, mini golf, a amphitheater, skating rink, things like that.
So again, some examples of follies you can see is just great ways for the community to come together, kids to play, you can kind of hang out in a gathering space. Art playgrounds, again, as much art as we can push, the better. And again, using murals as backdrop for large gathering spaces. I mean, clearly with all the raising of the buildings, there's going to be a lot of lots. So how do we activate the lots and make them active spaces? And then stuff for the community, again, for the kids specifically, like, you know, get them out of the computers and get them into outdoor spaces like skateboarding, you know, it's been around for a long time. And you can actually paint it and make a really nice piece of art out of it. Dog parks, again, being creative, and mini golfs.
So the next type is the breadcrumb kiosk. And this is really cool because a kiosk can serve as a beacon, so it can be designed in a way that it's serving as a beacon, it's serving as a landmark, a wayfinding element, and it can also help identify a place. The trails that we mentioned can be either permanently affixed to the kiosk. If it's a fancy digital kiosk, someone can be updating it remotely, so you can hear about the cool antique trail, the thrift store trail, the local eateries trail, and it can also serve as a common element that connects each one of the community business centers throughout the corridor. And this is just an image showing some different types of kiosk. The next type is the creative center. I would like to say that we're going to have vacancies, right? So we can use some of those vacant storefronts for these creative centers. There may actually be centers or community gathering spaces that already exist that can be utilized as a creative center. This is I think this is an awesome space that can be utilized as a space for events, art shows, workshops, highlighting the cultural identity of a place. They can serve as incubator spaces. I think they're great places for public meetings as well. That's going to where the community already meets versus asking them to come downtown to the town hall or something to that effect.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of incubator spaces. This is again for the kids and for adults, but specifically for kids to kind of get them exposed to different things. Well, there's already plans for like Mount Vernon High School where they're going to have incubators and different programs. So this is kind of expanding on that, teaching people how to draw, make jewelry, and then at the same token, you can vent and give them an opportunity to sell, which I think is an important thing. Here's the vendors. Obviously, art shows are always a great thing. I'm biased.
So here, just an example of some of these types. They're listed in order of effort, potential costs, longevity, how long will it be in place. Starting kind of at the low effort end is a really small parklet, super simple. Somebody rolled out some turf, put a table and chair and an umbrella up. Like, it literally can be that simple. And this is a great way to test out a parklet location before you maybe spend a little bit more money and time to actually implement a more permanent one. The next one is a simple, mural project by a local artist. The next is a farmer's market where you have some wood frame shelters on a gravel lot, so there's going to be effort in actually building those structures initially. But after that, you have somebody maybe programming it once a week, a couple times a week. The next is a digital kiosk. So that one is going to be a little pricier than a static kiosk. This one is programmable remotely, so you can change it a little bit more readily. And then the next is a cultural center. And so this is a fully functional cultural center like this one, right? There's full-time staff here, there's programming that happens here. So that is definitely more permanent and a more longer term type intervention. So we also looked at softening the hardscape and rescaling of things. So all of the interventions that we just went through will soften the landscape. But I also wanted to kind of point out that there's an opportunity to scale down. That highway is, I think, from end to end, from the width, it's like 178 feet. That's a lot. So stepping down that scale to a more pedestrian scale is going to be important, and we can do that with site furniture, with lighting, so that this isn't the lighting type that would be on the highway, but this is a good pedestrian scale lighting type to use as you move further into the site. And these are just a few options for addressing the hardscape. All of these can be temporary. You can roll it out, you can pick it up. Again, you can test to see how the parklet location is working before you commit to something permanent. So when we were looking at establishing our site selection criteria, we wanted to be able to consolidate all of the things that all our various panelists have talked about, right? We wanted to consolidate our strategic priorities and our design strategies and ultimately our placemaking interventions into one, into one overarching mission, and into one overarching and defined mission, which is unity through connection. We decided to then break down unity through connection into 4 pillars through which we can apply to select sites. So the first pillar is highlighting identity. I would say through our stakeholder conversations, it became evident that this community is essentially a lot of different people that become one, right? And not only that, this community knows that there's power in the bonds that you guys have, and sometimes those bonds are not able to be seen physically, but they're there and they're very important. And so ultimately that diverse community that you guys have, that diverse identity, is something that you can use as economic growth for yourselves. You guys are your richness through that identity. So the next pillar that we had, the second pillar, is to promote communication. So when we're looking at these various sites, we know that right now the highway and your different communities are very separated. So it becomes very important for us to select sites and do various things that allows communication to be quick, right? And so right now, communication might be a grassroots effort, right? Going store by store, door by door to make sure that everyone knows what's going on and knows how they can come together. But we can also look at other efforts and other sites that can allow that to be a little bit more streamlined. The third pillar is highlighting history. Obviously, this area has a great history. It's well known. You have Mount Vernon and other areas, but ultimately, this community has a history of community building, and it's radical. It's a place where someone decided that they were going to create a community for people who had been marginalized, and that's continued. So we can choose sites and do things on them that highlights that history, and not just one area. And then finally, our fourth pillar is choosing sites that support the economic growth of small businesses. Richmond Highway and the different neighborhoods on Richmond Highway are made up of small businesses that is its core. And so providing opportunities through site selection to bring them together and allow them to capitalize on their strength in numbers, and through that strength in numbers, perhaps they can utilize that to funnel business to their individual locations along the corridor. So I'm going to go ahead and give this to Maria, and she's going to talk about the specific sites and how they interplay with these pillars. Thank you. All right. So, building on those 4 pillars that we just walked through, we actually dialed it, I want to say, not down, but up a little bit. We have
of 6 criteria that as we were looking up and down the corridor, which obviously there are a number of sites that we could have identified through this process, and that you will, once you start engaging in the process, there'll be a lot more sites that everyone here knows about, versus us driving down the corridor yesterday and spending these 2 days together. So identifying locations of historical significance, right, as we talk about accessibility and adjacencies. I think starting with adjacencies, locate where people are, right, and so that it's an accessible location. We should think about the type of intervention. Is it something that people are going to drive to? Are they going to walk there? Are they going to be able to bike there? And understanding the disruption of the corridor in the interim, making sure that where we're locating these sites are accessible. Are they sites that can be part of the broader marketing for the corridor? Who owns the site, right? That's going to be a big piece of the puzzle. Is the owner of the site that we think is a really great location that we might all want to be on, are they part of the solution and willing to partake? VDOT is going up and down the corridor right now, acquiring parcels, taking down buildings. So there's a lot of locations that are vacant that we can talk about. Obviously, a number of commercial and privately owned locations, and then the county has actually a number of locations in the corridor as well. Gateways. This is a significant area with a number of different types of gateways, right? With Mount Vernon on the south side, the stream valleys. We look at the sea of asphalt all the time, but there are a lot of opportunities in the corridor with the bridges that are going to be here, crossing the stream valleys, and the mitigation that's going to occur through these projects in those stream valleys. And then the majority of the sites are going to be temporary, but I think we'll talk here in a second about a couple of locations that might have an opportunity for a little bit more permanent placemaking. Again, there were a number of different locations that we could have talked about. We started with 8. We're going to really dial it down. Connie's going to walk us through some ideas for 3 specific sites. But as Stephen mentioned earlier, as we're looking at all these awesome places, we probably want to focus our efforts with 1, 2, 3 locations to start and build from there. So we'll walk through each of these real quick. Gum Springs Gateway and wetlands, right? We heard obviously a lot of feedback. You can see the water tower there in the picture. Opportunities exist. There's actually some wetlands right there as well. So again, a location of historical significance that is accessible and adjacent to a lot of people that would fit in great to that marketing up and down the corridor, and is very likely a location for maybe a more temporary to permanent placemaking opportunity. This is this is actually one of the VDOT sites that's already been torn down. It's the former 7-Eleven location. It's just asphalted today. It's concrete. But again, a temporary location. It's a smaller location that's adjacent that we've all been driving past since it's been taken down. You can do something there, make it a little bit more attractive in the interim. Original Mount Vernon High School and the recreational site, right? A great opportunity because it's already gone through a massive planning process. There's money available. It is actively on its way right now. A publicly owned location. Given its historic designation, likely though may be a location for more special events. So maybe not something that's occurring on a regular basis, but when we have events that we want to highlight, prioritize the community, this would be a great location for those more special events. Again, the bridges and stream valleys. This is another opportunity when we're talking about interim or temporary programming that can then be converted. Yay, thank goodness the bridges are going to continue to be there. So what can we do with them, maybe on a more permanent basis? Here's a privately owned, this is the Aldi site, large, medium-sized parking lot, obviously with a lot of parking that's not being utilized today. So an opportunity for a site, I think it's one of the ones that Connie's going to walk through some of the ideas that we could have for this location. But massive sea of parking that we absolutely don't need. Let's utilize it in a different way. Mount Vernon Crossroads, an opportunity, right? The event space that's currently under construction there, with a large parking lot on the backside. There's a couple of containers that are just begging to be utilized for something, and an opportunity for a pedestrian entrance to the residential community on the west side of it. Teaming with the existing, soon to be existing business in that location, and utilizing a parking lot that's just sitting there today. Residents of North Hill, again, publicly owned process, residential up on the north side. There's a great great open space right in the corner, and at the same location at the Lockheed Bus Rapid Transit station in the future. So an opportunity there for more kind of grassy open space areas. And then on the other end of the spectrum and of the corridor, the South County Government Center, again, a public building with definitely a lot less area between where the building is and where the corridor starts, so kind of a more linear idea, but again, on a public site there. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Connie.
Cool, thank you. Well, thanks for the opportunity to be here today. First of all, personally, it's a exhilarating experience to be here for 2 days. And I was chatting with Joanne earlier. I haven't been working this hard for a long time, and talk about 2 o'clock in the morning. So not necessary on this, but like Nicosa said earlier, volunteer work. We took a lot of pride in what we push out today, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. And so like Maria said, we picked several sites, and given the time frame, we sampled about 3 sites, specifically residents at North Hill. The property was open fall of 2022, and when you go there, you will notice the sign is up asking for leasing, right? The space, as you drive through the corridor, the visual is not that great because the building is super elevated given the topography. In other words, if you want a human scale development here, you want to address how building interface with the public sidewalk. So what we are proposing here is looking at potentially adding more, I'm sorry, I'm hitting the wrong button. So given this configuration, what we think is to supplement with additional landscaping. The topography is right for an amphitheater or public space, public gathering space. It's calling for that. But what's missing is, as you stand over here, your eye and vision bleeds out into a heavily trafficked thoroughfare. So we're looking at plant more trees, please. Richmond Highway corridor is looking for more trees. And in addition to that, you can look at potentially adding a bit more edges and tucked into the hillside. So some people who has issue bending down, they will have an easier time to get down when the concert is on. For people like most of us, we can probably just throw a blanket and listen to the music, or on a movie night. So this is the existing condition over here. Right here, and we recently finished a project in Leesburg where we tucked a amphitheater, community amphitheater, into a little hillside. And as you can see, a little bit of investment on the lower side will address your ADA issue, and the rest of the amphitheater is just grassy lawn slope. And this is, I'm sorry, so this is what you look at these days if you stand next to the playground looking down towards the intersection. What we're looking for is some landscape buffer in this case. And on the lower end, you can set up a movie, inflatable movie. And on that lawn, you can choose to add more hard edges where people can sit on, or simply through a blanket. The other thing we think it's very important to recognize is there's a lot of history here. Some of the historic markers are no longer visible, and like Anna said earlier, those markers are significant, and we're looking at opportunity to bring it to the park as well. So as part of the trail, people will get a bit more history as they do their daily walking. Next slide. Next slide, we picked the Audi Shopping Center, a mid-size shopping center. So what we are envisioning there is, as you can see, the property line is over here, the service road right here. We're looking at maybe phase 1, test it, like Anna said, a small spot for a pop-up park, and see if that's going to be successful now. What we're looking at is combination of a kiosk, a series of shed or kiosk, or just simply an arbor. That helps to define the space, and within the space you can simply put up some street lights and posts, and depending on whether you want to invest more or not, you can make that pavement very appealing if you want. And this space is more enclosed, inward facing, protected from the heavy traffic, and that's when you can serve beer with a license or other food of your, representing the local population here. If that becomes successful, you can certainly look into potential expanding, incorporating a bit more pop-up exercise. In this case, a couple bay, you can do a pop-up basketball hoop, and still maintain that retail frontage along Richmond Highway, and potentially have a pop-up playground. What if it's a playground, or what if it's a dog spot, where dog owners can come here, grab a cup of drink, and let the dog off the leash a little bit. So here's a visual of what that space could look like thanks to Google. So we did an overlay of from the street corner. This is what you can see as you walk into the space. It could be a kiosk, and the back of the kiosk could be solid, and this is along Richmond Highway. This is another branding opportunity or art mural. And within the space with some overhead streetlights, it helps to define the space. Regarding the pavement, it could be simply the existing asphalt. If you want, you can even paint the asphalt with mural. Or if you want more, you can even truck in some sand, like Pike and Rose did in parts of Europe where I travel frequently as well, where people just throw down beach chairs and umbrellas. It's very popular. And here's an image of Oslo waterfront, where they put up some arbors. On this side of the space, they have some stationary buses. These are the buses that they won't move, but rented out to local eateries. And you can see the surface is very straightforward, simple gravel, and some planks laid over the gravel surface to facilitate ADA access. Overhead investment is also very simple. In this case, a little fish net with strong wires and some colorful flags. That's all very cheerful. So the next site we tested is next to the future BRT. Why did we pick this location? Because VDOT has acquired this lot, and it's very close to the government center. And when we visit the site, we notice the building have already come down. So what's there are simply the concrete slabs and the parking lot. Adjacency-wise, it's part of the future BRT, so we see a lot of opportunity here. But understand, VDOT will be using it for staging purpose once construction starts somewhere 2026. But who knows, and the project will be phased, so this space could be used for quite a while while VDOT make its way through. So what we're looking at is next to the building, this site right here, what if we build an urban arboretum? There's a severe shortage of green coverage along the corridor. According to Fairfax County Urban Forestry, the coverage right now is about 17 to 22% along the corridor, where the rest of the county is between 40 to 50%, right? We talk about equity quite often. Do some tangible things, plant trees. So within the mosque itself, you can have additional programmed activity, which we will show you shortly here. The other lot over here, it used to be a Mexican eatery. The building is gone. However, VDOT had kept an existing tree, which still helps to define the space. So our vision over there is knowing that the government center provide health services to residents, and there is a daycare center here, and the parking is relatively full. That tells us there's enough foot traffic here. So what we're looking at is potentially use this empty parking lot for community gardening space. If some of you guys recall, in the 2010, when Mayor Bloomberg was in New York, mayor, he did every parking lot, try to do a community garden movement, and you all of a sudden see a lot of planted tanks coming up. So that's what we're looking at. Even Detroit, remake of Detroit downtown, they're doing part of that as well. So here's a 3D envisioning of that community garden space, and the government building is in the back. This is Richmond Highway right here. We'll need some spatial definition here in the case of landscape, and potential a mural that talk about what's happening here and promote healthy and well living and grow of local agriculture here on the very property that your government stand on. So within that space, you can simply order some Amazon portable corrugated metal planters and fill them up with 18 inches of soil. There you're gonna do pollinator garden, everything that's suitable for the population here. And the existing tree is here, and VDOT's already knocked down the building, so it's a concrete slab there. That's where you can set up some picnic tables. Your residents can take a rest while they're gardening, and I'm pretty sure electrical and water connection is still there, which means you can plug a hose and then water if needed. Yeah. So here's an example showing in Detroit downtown where people put up these temporary plots, and even artists get involved over there. The urban mosque that I was talking about earlier, you can apply something like $25,000 we heard early on, apply to the county for that community visual improvement. What if you send money to buy trees? So I text my friend on the contracting side last night, he said 50 to 60 trees if you ask our company to plant them. On the other hand, your Earth Day is coming up. What if value your community? Plant a tree, own a tree, take care of a tree. You can have more than 50 trees planted along the whole corridor. And within the tree mosque, you can have set up spaces, lounge chairs, or simply movable chairs, or have ping pong set up, like in parts of New York City. You see that quite often. People spend their leisure time playing outside. You have workers over here who probably will appreciate a little break. And the other thing, what if you set up some red hammocks here? It's an iconic thing. From the corridor, you can see something's happening here, especially that greenery. If you plant a tree at 1.5 inches caliber today, in 2 days, in 2 years, depending on the species, you're gonna have a 2.5 inch, 3 inch. In 5 years, you can have a 4 inch, easily. And where would they go when VDOT comes in and try to remove these for their construction? Talk to Fairfax County Urban Forestry. They have a program trying to plant this whole corridor here. I'm sure they can find your location. Okay.
Well, it's nothing like being the last speaker when your audience's blood sugar levels are low and they're thinking about happy hour. And so therefore, I know I'm the last thing between you and questions and answers and your evening cocktail. So let me get right down to it. As a final observation, you've heard and seen a lot of great placemaking ideas. But there's just one important note. The work doesn't end when the placemaking begins. It's critical for there to be a robust program of place management, not only to plan and coordinate the implementation, but also to promote and communicate on a continuing basis and to focus on offering maintenance and security. Nobody wants to go to a place with an overflowing trash can or to feel insecure. So the role of a place management organization is really critical to make your place-making strategies work over the long run. And in particular, a lot of times placemaking, a place gets created, but there's not an ongoing attention to monitoring. Are people using it? Is it not well known? Does it need to be promoted better? Are there tweaks or other changes that need to be made? So that's a really important role for the place management organization.
So that brings us to the key responsibilities of the Southeast Fairfax Development Corporation. Evan is smiling now, but we want to emphasize that what we've outlined is a tall order, and we need to be realistic in our expectations. Given the fact that it's so close to communities, though, and property owners in the corridor, we think it makes so much sense for SFDC to play a major role as a place management organization. And these are just some examples of the kinds of activities that SFDC can undertake, matchmaking between businesses that have to relocate and potential new spaces, working to let everybody in the community know what the next steps are for the bus rapid transit and for the construction. These kinds of activities that will be all important for making sure that this placemaking program has the impact that you want it to have. So, now, back to the questions and answers for, let's sum it up.
So to sum it up,
to sum it up, before we open up for Q&A, placemaking, it was noted earlier, should be really informed by the communities, the folks that are living, working in this corridor. Proactively mitigate for construction. Again, construction's in the last several years here, so how do you sort of get ahead of that 3-year plus process and make those efforts today before the construction starts. Manage expectations, because as was noted by Stephen, not all projects will be able to deliver something grand, but there's those small steps, that small little part that begins to paint the expectations for the community that can occur down the road. Again, the importance of the community from before, ownership, adjacency. Some owners, either on the public side or private side, could do different things that really further the public interest here. Connie noted the importance of trees. Those are really a low-hanging fruit, but they're really critical in terms of a first step that a lot of communities take regarding how do you sort of begin improving an area where we clearly have a deficit of landscape and vegetation today. And as Ellen noted finally, is that place management, how do you maintain the space once it's up and running? And these are all things that we believe are sort of key recommendations for this effort. So thank you for listening for us for the last hour or so. It was, there's been a lot of slides, but we'll open it up for Q&A. Thank you again for coming.
I just wanted to bring up a couple of points that are concerns of Route 1, and that's commercial vehicle parking has been a problem over the last period of time, and some of the access roads that run parallel with Route 1 have become this kind of dumping ground for commercial vehicle parking, and it's an eyesore. So I think, while you're thinking of these plans, commercial vehicles have to park somewhere. They're everywhere in the community, so we need to make a place for them. The other item is food trucks. Food trucks, obviously a great new trend. If food trucks can be incorporated in small groups or individual spots where they can operate, it's a wonderful addition to the community. And then the last thing is temporary planters. I'm a landscaper by trade, and you can do a lot with planters, with quick growing plants that may be sort of temporary to cover an area with green space to make it look inviting, to make it look warm. But then after 6 months or a year, when that needs to be moved, it's a relatively low investment, and it can be moved somewhere else or started somewhere else. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comments.
adjacent to the government center as well as Vernon High School. And I love some of those two ideas that you have, but I think you've overlooked Mount Vernon High School and what its destiny is, meaning we already have invested quite a bit of money there. And the idea is to make it a destination place, not just a historic building. It's going to have a teen center, a senior center. It's going to have programming, cultural programming, etc. So if anything, that planning committee could probably use your help in making that place a really special place, because that's what we're struggling with. It's a perfect location, it's got lots of land, and we'll need lots of help, and there's already plans for it to have permanent artwork, sculpture gardens, etc. So just helping us to make that come to fruition. And I obviously like some of the short-term ideas and the trees, etc. So thank you.
Just an observational comment. It seemed to me that what I've heard is a lot of standalone projects of one dimension or another. My struggle is trying to see what connects them. Is there a visual connection between these distant locations that you have scattered throughout the corridor? And I'm reminded of the color codes that we often find in hospitals, where you need to go from building to building and you follow the red line or the blue line or the yellow line. And I couldn't help but think maybe that's one way that you create that visual connection. I'm reminded of Boston, the Boston history, the Freedom Trail, thank you. Another great example of that, where they've done a good job, although somewhat subtle and hidden. I think the color code, quite frankly, would really jump out at you as you kind of look down and say, oh, red is down there, yellow is over there. And it may not be painted on the street, it could just as easily be signs up on a wall. But with the same point that draws that connection, the visual connection, which I think is so important.
That's a very good comment. In terms of, I would just say that one of our recommendations is having a more sort of cultural arts plan, and that would be a great component of that. In terms of thinking of how you could potentially link the different elements that are within the community. I'd look to the rest of my panelists of any other comments that they may have.
Thank you for that comment. That's definitely something that we talked about, and one of the placemaking types is a kiosk, and that kiosk can also serve as a visual beacon. This continuous, consistent element that is present along the corridor, and that perhaps is a different color. We talked about branding pretty extensively, and that maybe each area has its own sort of logo, but there is some consistency amongst them, and you see that present as you kind of march down the corridor. I think the mural project is also an opportunity to perhaps provide that cohesiveness throughout the corridor as well.
Hi, thank you all for participating in this. I'm curious about the place management. I understand maintenance and security. I didn't see a programming component. Is that something you talked about, and how integral or critical is that?
No, you're right. Programming, if it wasn't listed in the specific bullets, it's only because we were trying to shorten it for time. But programming, all the things, so many of the things we were talking about, festivals or food trucks or whatever, they can't exist unless somebody is there actively programming the space and then letting people know about the program. So it's important to have built a good communications mechanism first, so that people know where to go to find out what's happening on the corridor this week. But yes, programming is really important.
I didn't know I'd be so hard. You gotta just turn it up. I'm Jeff Winborn from the Placemaking Community Association. One idea which a lot of those major cities have, I don't know, it's not working.
Just keep going.
Have done is broadcast Wi-Fi out of some of these centers, like the kiosks, be a perfect way. New York City, if you go through Manhattan, they took a lot of the old payphones. They turned them into kiosks, just like you're recommending here, but they also broadcast Wi-Fi free to people in the community. And so it's one thing to think about doing, but also have a separate website just for this 7.5 mile, I didn't realize it was so big, so long, 7.5 mile corridor, which would have a red zone for shopping of a certain type, or historical for green, however. But just some ideas. By the way, I think this was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I saw another hand. Oh.
Thank you very much for the recommendations. I really appreciate all the thought and attention that you've given to this corridor. The question I have is around the sand. We talked about having like unique signatures for each of the CBCs, and thinking about the project, the Pike and Rose project. I've been there, I've seen it. I'm not sure if the sand is still there today, but on the visit that I took, there were at least 30 kids playing in that sand on the day that I went out. And I would argue that if we were to select a site along the corridor for this sand, it would become a unique feature. So I just thinking out loud here, like implementation, I mean, ideas like that are kind of bold and different, but I guess we'd have to figure out how we would be able to implement, manage, and consistently have the sand on the property. But just wanted to acknowledge that that one kind of resonated with me personally. And then the focus on the small businesses, I think, you know, making sure that we provide them with an opportunity to remain viable during the construction of the roadway and also the BRT. It's going to be necessary. So thank you for that as well. And I'll conclude.
Thank you. Thanks for mentioning one of the projects I worked on, which is Pike and Rose in North Bethesda, Maryland. So spent a lot of years on with planning and implementation of it with Federal Realty. So questions?
Thank you. A lot of these things appear to be short-term while the construction is going on. Am I correct in that? And if so, great, but have you thought the midterm and the long term, are you going to be providing that information to the Board of Supervisors?
So I have not seen my family in 2 days. This is a huge project, and so what we try to do is make it as brief as possible. So the sand, great idea. This is just a launching point, and to kind of get the creative juices going. The question about, the comment about Mount Vernon High School, great. So one of the things that we said is from micro to macro, micro being the breadcrumb trail, which you know, the red line, green line, blue line. So it's good to hear you guys saying it back to us or something, right? But the idea is that information, gathering space, parklets, creative centers, which I consider Mount Vernon, we would want those in every stop. So there's 9 stops, and we would look, and obviously if we already have it, great, one check. We wouldn't duplicate, but that's the idea.
Any other comments from anyone?
Yeah, I would just say, one of the things, obviously, this project is huge, and, you know, is gonna take 7 years. So it's all sort of conceptually long-term. I mean, from 7 years is a big number. And so I don't think we thought of it particularly as like short-term as in 180 days, because and I'll give you an example which didn't make it into the slides, but you know, because this is phased, the idea is you could have a ribbon cutting or a celebration every time each phase is complete, and you know, that celebration would bring those parts of the community together. And there may be 7 celebrations. Like, you may be doing this till 2032 if there's a delay. So a lot of those ideas, just by the nature of this project, are long term. And I mean, I think maybe people wish that it was shorter, but it's big, so.
And I'm sorry, I realized I didn't really answer your question. Yeah, so sorry about that. So the idea is, we did discuss that. What do we do now? And what we hope is everything is permanent. So if there's a music center that's really bringing a lot of buzz, bringing a lot of people, you better believe that'll be permanent. If the mural project is bringing a ton of foot traffic, that's helping the businesses thrive, you better believe that would continue. So ideally, everything should be permanent, but it's all kind of trial and error.
Probably speak to this earlier. So the outing side, you can consider long term. It really depends on if the pop-up park idea will fly. And then this collaboration between SFDC and the private ownership could continue on. It really depends on if the public will accept that idea of pop-up park. The 2 sites next to the government center are purchased by ULI already, and their plan is for construction staging. So when the construction moves through, those 2 spaces will be used for construction staging. However, at this point, based on what they showed, those 2 sites eventually will be part of the bio retention design for the roadway extension. In other words, you're still continuing going to have this visual of greenery down your corridor, which is precious. And the park right next to North Hill, that hilly side, it is, I'm speaking on behalf of the county, it could be permanent. It's just some simple tree planting to find the space. Then you can use it on a more regular basis.
I just wanted to know whether or not SFDC has accepted the role of placemaking management. And also, would the Board of Supervisors support funding in support for this project?
They have 2 people. They have no money. It'd be great, but.
Well, we can put Supervisor Lusk on the spot now and see if he'll fund us. Yeah, so I guess I'll say this. When I started and took over as director in early 2020, I reframed some of the vision of SFDC to focus on a 3-point plan. And that was placemaking, business development, and site development. And so placemaking right now has taken the forefront, and one of the reasons is that placemaking kind of begets business development. Like, if you do good placemaking, businesses come to you. Businesses want to locate where there's a sense of community and culture and pride there. It's hard to sometimes ask a business to come and say, you know, we want a cool dog park brewery, come here and make it cool. No, they want to come where they already know that cool exists, that cool people are hanging out, that they're doing stuff, there's activity, there's energy, then they locate there. And so that is kind of our plan in terms of economic development. Instead of trying to, you know, go recruit the largest business, we're gonna recruit the community to help make this place cool, and those businesses will come to us. In terms of management, I think it can be shared. Look, we are a small organization. We're definitely always open to more funding. We do take sponsorships. We're a nonprofit, so if anybody would like to tonight, you're more than welcome. But I'll say there's always creative ways to get things done and manage products. So one of the products that we did, and it wasn't here, but it was in a presentation that we gave to the panel, was we we did a parklet project. We worked with at Mount Vernon Plaza. We found some extra space, a very underutilized space that was, not looking great. And we're like, what if we did, a parklet here? And we came up with some designs. We had a landscape architect on one of our committees, donated his time to just do some quick drawings of what it could be. And then we contacted Federal, and we're like, what do you think of this? We'll come together, we'll find some grants, we'll get some volunteers. And they liked it so much that they funded it, and it ended up being a $400,000 project that they funded, which was great because it probably would have taken me 40 years to come up with that money. But a lot of these private property owners, if we can show them the drive, the community involvement behind it, that other people are doing it, hey, look what your neighbors are doing, and then also try to bring some money to the table and creativity to the table, we hope that they'll get on board and they'll contribute as well. So it becomes a collaborative process between the public and the private sector, and I think that's how we can get a lot done. But we told them in the beginning, the bottom, look at it as a pyramid, where the bottom of the pyramid is kind of like $0 to $25,000 projects. Those are projects that we could potentially manage within our current budget. And we could, do 1 or 2 of those a year, like we're doing a couple murals right now. We just finished one at Zips. We have another one coming to Rising Hope Church. And then as you go up that pyramid, it gets smaller, you get to $50,000 projects, maybe $75,000 projects, maybe $100,000 projects. And all those are doable, they just take a little more planning. So there's lots of different grants, some of which we've already been successful in getting from like the National Endowment of Arts. We have the Community Foundation of Northern Virginia here, which provides a lot of funding for projects. We have Arts Fairfax here, which provides grants for projects. And then private companies, Dominion has special grants. So it's just about finding money, but it's a lot easier once you have the vision, the community input, ideas, then you can bring it to people and say, this is where we want to go, and then we find, how to get there. And then I guess the last thing I'll say is that we don't want to be the only place manager, place maker. We want all of you to be the place makers, and then let us help you create your vision. So all of you probably go to a lot of the businesses on the corridor, or maybe you have your own business. And you probably know the owner if it's a small local business. And if you go in there and you're walking in, you see the front, you're like, wow, this could be really cool for some kind of like abstract sculpture, or maybe some really cool design landscaping or a mural here. And you walk in, you say, hey, what would you think about? You talk to the owner, what would you think about? We know this group, SFDC, we could call them. They'll help come up with designs, we'll come up with a budget, and help find the funding to do that. So if you get that buy-in or find those relationships, we will come and make that hopefully make it possible. And like they said, this is just to get the creative juices going. They're not coming up with every project that we're going to do. We've already actually coming up with designs for a big love sign in front of the original Mount Vernon High School that kind of goes on the elevated grass, and some other kind of sculpture garden ideas there. So this is, and the reason I think we wanted to do is because these people have worked on lots of different projects and developments and done their own projects, and the stuff that they came up with was bigger than I had been thinking. Some of these projects were more creative than I had been thinking, so it gives us more options to add into our toolbox and to focus on, while we can still continue looking at a lot of different other opportunities on the corridor as well. So I'll say that if you don't have my contact information, but you're interested in being a placemaker and collaborating with us, you can come talk to me. I'll leave some cards up here. Feel free to take a card and help us make this vision, because I'm not volunteering to do this alone, just so you know. This is going to be a collaborative process. Any other questions or last remarks? And I guess I'll close out. I really want to thank the panel, ULI and Mark Gosda for bringing this together. Supervisor Lusk as well for his support, and Queenie's saying for his money as well. Yeah, he will support when we come with the good projects. I know he will. And I mean, this kind of a thing, the Urban Land Institute, all of these people donated their time. They're not being paid for this, and they all do have jobs. And so they took time off to help this community, and it's a part of the Urban Land Institute's kind of volunteer give back, and it's really a great program, and we were very fortunate. So thank you guys, and I also want to recognize our organization. Our former board chair, Mark Viani, is here, and our current new board chair, Mike Kitchen, is here. And so within SFDC, we do have a board and committees. If you're interested in participating that way, come talk to me as well. Thank you all for coming out, and look forward to working with you to make this happen.
Smaller pictures.